That simple one of love as though you've never been hurt. End the message, everybody go home. You're good. Just do that. You understand, that's what we're here working on ourselves every week, every time that we meditate, every time we practice a positive affirmation, every time we pick up a self-help book, every time we join a support group, every time we share from our authentic, real, true, powerful self, we are looking at what does it take for us to love unconditionally as though we've never been hurt. But boy, do we have a lot of reasons why we can't love unconditionally. Well, that's what we've been embarking on this whole year of looking at what does it take to create complete and total transformation in areas of our lives that need transformation. Transformation is simply a fancy word that means change. Change. Is there any area in your life that needs a little shifting? As I've said many times before, if you're not sure, ask your partner. Ask your employer, your employees, your neighbors, your coworkers, your family if there's any place you need transformation if you think you got it all done. So we're going to look at, and what we've been embarking on since the beginning of the year under our theme, to be a vessel. This is our vessel. This body is what houses our spirit and our soul. To be a vessel for transformation, meaning we're looking at and examining areas or our life in general that we may have specific tendencies to practice habits or behaviors or to the extreme addictions that do not support ourselves when we're in the midst or practicing them, or those closest to us or our community at large. So we're looking at not necessarily just, but including drugs, alcohol, sex, shopping, gambling, gaming on the computer, internet addiction, and et cetera, et cetera. But we're also looking at, is there any habits or bad behaviors that we have about gossiping, about criticizing, about judging, about self-condemnation, about rage, about anger that needs to be broken, that needs to be shifted. You know we can be rage-aholics. We can be work-aholics. So we're looking at what areas of our life do we need to shift to change. And so we have done and put together the combination of the historic 12-step programs that have benefited millions of people since the early 20s, I believe is the date that it was founded, as well as the New Thought principles, which I am a part of since the beginning of my life, which includes the teachings of religious science and unity. And so we're looking at, by bringing these two together, we have created a rich roadmap, directions, guidelines to assist us in our evolution of spirit, in enhancing our awareness of self in this world and our connection to the global community and the community that we call Spirit, God, Infinite Presence. And so today we embark on step 9, the big step. And this is, for this month, we will look at the step 9 of AA, which is make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And then our spiritual principle for the month is justice, meaning fairness and impartiality. The promise of AA is our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change when we've made direct amends. And finally, we'll end on the final Sunday of the month as we will grow in the power of spiritual discernment. And the part that I have added to each of our months is always the 4th step. That's the part that I have added myself into these 3 well-established principles. And number 1 or number 4 this month will be, as I say, we'll grow in the power of spiritual discernment. So today we embark on the making direct amends, with my topic being, with spiritual courage, amends can be made. As I've said, especially around steps 3, 4, and 5, and step 8 and 9, this step is not for the faint of heart. Meaning most of us, not just in this room, but in North America, will never take such a step. And I want that to set in for a moment. Most of us will never make complete amends to those that we may have brought harm to, including ourselves. We brought harm not only to others, perhaps in our lifetime, but to ourselves. So I want to start off this morning with a story that so sets up and establishes the parameters of what making amends is all about. And it's called The Carpenter. And it goes like this. Two brothers who lived on adjoining farms fell into conflict. It was the first serious rift between the brothers in 40 years of farming side by side, sharing machinery and trading labor and goods as needed without a hitch. Then the long collaboration fell apart. It began with a small misunderstanding, and it grew into a major difference, and finally it exploded into an exchange of bitter words followed by weeks of silence. Anyone been there on that one? One morning there was a knock on the older brother's door. He opened it to find a man with a carpenter's toolbox. "I'm looking for a few days of work," he said. "Perhaps you would have a few small jobs here and there I could help with." "As a matter of fact, yes, I do," said John. "I do have a job for you. Look across the street at that farm. That's my neighbor. In fact, it's my younger brother. Last week there was a meadow between us, but he recently took his bulldozer out and he created a river levee, and now there is a creek between us. Well, he may have done this to spite me, but I'll do him one better. See that pile of lumber by the barn? I want you to build me a fence, an 8-foot fence, so I don't need to see his place or his face anymore." The carpenter said, "I think I understand the situation. Show me the nails and the post hole digger, and I'll be able to do a job that pleases you." The older brother had to go to town, so he helped the carpenter get the materials ready, and then he was off for the day. The carpenter worked hard all that day, measuring, sawing, and nailing. About sunset, when the farmer returned, the carpenter has just finished his job. The farmer's eyes opened wide. His jaw dropped. There was no fence there at all. What there was a bridge. A bridge that stretched from one side of the creek to the other. A fine piece of work, handrails and all. And the neighbor, his younger brother, was coming toward them, his hand outstretched. "You are quite a fellow to build this bridge after all I've said and done." The two brothers stood at each end of the bridge, and then they met in the middle. Taking each other's hand, they turned to see the carpenter hoist his toolbox onto his shoulder. "No, wait, stay a few days. I have a lot of other projects for you," said the older brother. "I'd love to stay on," the carpenter said, "but I have many more bridges to build." This is what making amends is all about. It's about building bridges, extending oneself out of one's ego and fear. What is it that stops us if we had to look at who would we want on that other side of that bridge? And what is it that stops us from building that bridge and taking the step out and said, "I'll meet you in the middle, and if I need to, I'll come to your side"? Who is it that we want on the other end of that bridge? Who is it that we've been fearing might not ever step up on that other side of the bridge? Who is it that we've been waiting and putting off and saying, "We'll get to it, I'll do it one day, it'll happen"? What's our excuses? What making amends is about not only building the bridge, but stepping across it. So, who is that one person in your life that you could possibly consider building a bridge across a gap? That gap that's been caused in division, caused by hurt, perhaps by our own or others' addictive behavior or our inappropriate actions. So who do you need to meet on that bridge in your life? Is there anyone? If you search down through the depths of your beingness, who is it that needs to be met on the other side? Your children? Your parents? Your loved ones? Your partner? Your wife? Your husband? Your committed other? Who is it that needs to be met? Last night, as I was gathering up our water bottles to go up to Thrifty and refill them, I was also gathering our plastic bags. that are left over from all the stuff that we bring home in plastic bags to recycle them. And as I was putting them on in this one bigger bag that I'd brought home from a store, so I could take them back to put them in the plastic bag at the recycle store, at recycling at Thrifty's, knowing that this is the talk, and see, the thing about when I'm as a minister, you get to live every week your talk. It's not just, I didn't just wake up here yet this morning and it's all ready. I got to live it all week long. You all get to hear 25, 30, I might go 60 minutes just to make you feel what I felt this last week. But what I know is who I would like to meet on that bridge is Mother Earth. To apologize to her for how we've mistreated her. What about that inward bridge across the gap between our ego and our higher power? How about between our adult self and our inner child? You know that inner child, that authentic self, that real self that represents our pureness, our innocence, our imagination, our creativity, that joy, that spontaneity, that sheer exhilaration, that part of us. Is there any part of us that we need to meet on that bridge and say, man, I'm sorry? How about if our body, which has a soul, our soul of the body itself, this physical beingness, would we need to make amends to that body for what we've put into it over the years, for what we've fed it, saying that I can't control what I eat, I just have to eat it because it tastes good, and I don't care what it does to you once it gets past my taste buds? Is there anyone in your life that you need to make amends to? And what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Are we going to sit here and not do a thing about it? Oh, that's a nice bridge. I'm going to step back and watch everyone else go across it. That's what my opportunity here is, to see if I can inspire you, to shift you, to motivate you, to elevate you, to go, wow, what is the benefit by me meeting myself, meeting my body, meeting my authentic self, meeting my real self, meeting my kids, meeting the soul of my parents, the spirit, whoever it is that needs to be amends. What is the benefit from it? The benefit is there is wholeness that will be gained on a sacred level, that you will awaken to realize that we're not these wounded individuals. When God sent us forth, that energy that created the day that we're enjoying today, that created the universe, that energy sent you forth at one time. When it sent you forth, do you believe for a minute it said, go down there and struggle? Go down there and flounder around. Go down there and just barely get by. Martha liked it. The rest of us are going, oh, I'm not sure. All right. So these reparations take innumerable forms. There are some general principles which provide guidance when it comes to making amends. It's important that we remind ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. We ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences can be, as quoted from the AA, the Big Book. Step 9 completes what we started in Step 8, to make amends to those that we have harmed. We pay back debts we owe, we apologize, we write letters, we find time to do and say things that would help heal the damage that we may have caused. We try to bring goodness where previously we had brought discord and destruction. It takes insight, courage, and dedication to make such amends. That's why this is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the weak-minded. This is not for the weak of heart. This is not for the wounded heart. We've gone through those 8 steps to get us to this place. And if we've been sitting back passively, we've watched the healing pass in front of us, not getting out in the river itself. We've been observers. We want to be participators. But now we know that we have the help of Spirit to know what to do and how to do it. We learn to earnestly seek the right way to go about this process with Spirit. We start to live the kind of life that universe has meant for us to live all along. From the 12 steps again. After we've made a list of people we have harmed and have reflected carefully upon each instance, and have tried to possess ourselves of the right attitude in which to proceed, we will see that the making of direct amends divides those we should approach into several classes. First, there will be those who ought to be dealt with just as soon as we become reasonably confident that we can maintain our level of sobriety and consciousness. Number two, there will be those to whom we can make only partial restitution. Less complete disclosures would do them or others more harm than good. 3, there will be other cases where action ought to be deferred, and still others in which, by the very nature of the situation, we shall never be able to make direct personal contact at all. Timing is an essential part of this step. We should make amends when the first opportunity presents itself, except to do so will cause more harm. Sometimes we cannot actually make the amends. It is neither possible nor practical. In some cases, amends may be beyond our means. We have found that willingness can serve in the place of action where we are unable to contact the person that we may have harmed. However, we should never fail to contact anyone because of embarrassment, fear, or procrastination. A little shift here for you. A guy was getting ready to tee off on the first hole when a second golfer approached and asked if he could join in. The first said that he usually played alone but agreed to be a part of a twosome. They were even after the first 2 holes. The second guy said, "We're about evenly matched. How about playing for $5 a hole?" This sounds like a David Jones joke. The first guy said that he wasn't much for betting, but he agreed to the terms. The second guy won the remaining 16 holes with ease. As they were walking off number 18, the second guy was busy counting his $80. He confessed that he was a pro at a neighboring course and liked to pick on suckers. The first fellow revealed that he was the parish priest. The pro was flustered and apologetic and tried to make amends by offering to return the money. The priest said, no, you won fair and square. I was foolish to bet with you. You keep your winnings." The pro said, "Is there anything I can do to make it up to you?" The priest said, "Well, you could come to Mass on Sunday and make a donation. And if you want, bring your mother and father along. I'll marry them." You can hear how everybody's kind of figuring and putting it all together there. I won't have Dre flash the word up there. In some old relationships, an unresolved conflict may still exist. Do you have any unresolved conflict from past relationships still existing today? There's a good chance that you do. You understand, I made my living off of it for the last 23 years. I'm doing Free the Heart on unresolved conflict from the past. The past is anything that happens a Google of a second ago or more. Okay? As soon as it's over, that's the past. So, we want to step away from further antagonisms and ongoing resentments. In many instances, we can only go to the person and humbly ask for understandings of past wrongs. And as I said to you a few moments earlier, if you are not sure if you may or may not need to make amends, ask, 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 ask. Say it with me, it feels good. Ask. Sometimes this will be a joyous occasion when you go about making amends with some old friends or relatives. And they prove very willing to let go of their bitterness upon you making amends to them. But to go to someone who is hurting from the burn of misdeeds caused by ourselves can be dangerous. Indirect amends may be necessary when direct ones would be safer or would be unsafe or endanger other people. We can only make our amends to the best of our ability. We try to remember that when we make amends, we are doing it for ourselves. Instead of feeling guilty and remorseful, we feel relieved about our past. And as we talked last week about, or a couple weeks ago, about the principle of forgiveness, what we said is it's about detaching ourselves from the emotional bond or connection that we have to the experience or the person. That's what a forgiveness is about. That's what making amends is making whole and making complete the detachment from the usually hurting emotional connection that we have to the incident, the experience, or the person. That's what we're trying to do here, is make whole. We're trying to take it a step further than just saying we're sorry. We're trying to make it complete. So the making amends needs to be approached and cautiously by people that are codependent. See, if you depend on how the other person's going to respond, this step is going to challenge you to the umpteenth degree. Because when you go to make amends to somebody that may have been hurt for a while and has been carrying that hurt with them for a while, and you go up and you say, hey, you know what I did to you? And they've been carrying the hurt for 20 years or 10 years, and it was a big one. And you say, hey, I'm really sorry for, I want to make amends, I want restitution, I want to do everything I can to make it whole. Don't expect them to all of a sudden go, yay! They may be upset with you, and if you are still depending upon your well-being and your response based on how they're going to respond to you, you're going to have a challenge with this step. And that may be very well what prevents you from taking this step towards wholeness. So if that is so, there are three things amends are and can be, and there's one thing they definitely should never be. The first that they can be is, number one, sincere efforts to apologize for past harm caused. Number two, wonderful bridge builders for more positive future relationships. Sometimes it can bring back the possibility of a relationship reestablishing itself, and often that relationship, if it does reestablish itself, gets stronger because you've been through some difficult times together. We fear difficult times. We're so afraid of them. Yet because of them, we've grown stronger. So if we grow stronger inwardly, oftentimes a relationship, a friendship, a partnership can grow stronger because of a difficult time you may have gone through together. And finally, the third one. These making amends are effective agents for removing the tremendous weight of guilt, shame, and remorse. And the continuous reminder of why we do not want to carry around negative feelings such as guilt, shame, and remorse, and rage, and anxiety, and fear is because those are the number one emotions that attack our immune system. And remember, a weakened immune system opens ourselves up for illness and disease. That's why we're looking at shedding these things, not just only because they're morally or spiritually the right things to do, but because they will assist us in making sure that we have a strong and able body to carry our spirit, to house our soul into the future years to come. And there's nothing that will weaken your immune system quicker than stress and guilt and fear and remorse and anything else we want to throw in there, shame. The one thing amends should never be, though, are installment payments on false guilt or false shame. From this 12-step journal, I read, when we make amends, we are simply telling the person we harmed the truth about our actions as we now see them, trusting that the healing, the self-acceptance, and the serenity we will gain is worth the risk of rejection we may encounter. We are trusting that the universe and our fellow seekers can do more to bring us to happiness and intimacy than any negative opinion by the other person could cause us or hurt us. Although this risking of open rejection by those to whom we may make amends to is frightening, we have the experience of thousands, of hundreds of thousands of people who have taken this step before us to encourage and strengthen us as we go. After making amends to all the people we have listed in step 8, we begin to experience the promises of the program. Doing step 9 takes courage. It takes prudence, it takes good judgment, and a careful sense of timing. As you can see, this can turn out to be a lengthy, difficult, and soul-searching process that requires creativity and courage. Remember, these amends do not have to be done all at once. You deserve time to think and feel the process through. Again, gentleness is your goal. Direct is the key in this step. There are times, I'm afraid, when many of us are hopeful that indirect amends will suffice, sparing us the pain and possible humiliation of approaching people in person and telling them of our wrongs. This is evasion and will never give us a true sense of breaking with the wrongdoings of the past. It indicates that we are still trying to defend something that isn't worth defending anymore. How many of us are still trying to defend a behavior from 20 years ago? Where does it exist? In some little tiny few little neural connection up here in the brain. That's the only place it exists. And you're defending it with you'll break up relationships, you'll end families, you'll end partnerships, all over this little space in our head. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what we're defending. True? That's good. Sounds like my brother. That's the way he talk. He's a big guy too. This is evasion and will never give us a true sense of breaking with the wrongdoings of the past. It indicates that we're still trying to defend that something. So for myself, one of the biggest amends that I made in my life was a few months after I left my then wife in Oklahoma and moved back to Southern California. And about 4 months after I made that transition, it was towards the end of July 23rd, which happened to be the day of my anniversary with my then wife. And I found myself, one of those things, you ever found yourself at some place and you're not sure how you got there, but you just knew it was the place you needed to be? I found myself up on a point. It was called the Cross. And it was kind of like if you've ever walked in the Gonzales Fairfield area, Gonzales Beach, Fairfield area, and you ever walked up to the observatory there. We go up there pretty regularly for our walks. And it's a beautiful view of the city and the ocean. That's kind of like the view of this place. And it happened to be where I proposed to my then wife 17 years earlier. And I called her on my cell phone. And I sat there in the very space where I'd asked her 17 years earlier to the day to marry her, or not to the day. And I apologized to her, for leaving. And I cried and cried and cried. And I could feel that relief and the release. But yet it was still a necessary element that was needed. And believe me, she wasn't taking it well. 8 years later, she still hasn't taken it well. But it was a necessary part of my growth and completion of disconnecting from a relationship. If I had $1 for every time I have ever counseled with somebody that hasn't fully completed and disconnected from a relationship to a previous marriage or partnership, I would be very wealthy. That's why this is such a critical step in our evolution of spiritual awareness and awakening. For until it's complete, we can't grow and ascend to the next level of awareness. That's why this is not a step for the faint-hearted. This whole year is not a step for the faint-hearted. And that's what my job has been, to continuously keep inviting you to get into the process. Get into the swimming pool. Quit sitting up in the stands and watching, or on the deck going, oh, I wonder what it's like, or putting your foot in tow and testing. I want you to get in the damn water, or heavenly water. I think of Crystal. She always corrects me every time I say hell. She says heaven. Heaven. Perhaps we can make up for the limitation through a more subtle method of making amends, one that seems to be accepted by a large number of AA members. This is the method. This is one one that seems to be accepted by a large number of AA members. This is the method of making amends by living in the right way and meeting one's own obligations and responsibilities. Quite often, this can be more important to certain people than any amount of personal apologies or expressions of regret. Such amends are actually direct because they have a direct effect on the lives of others. So sometimes we can't actually make amends. It's too late. It's over. But we can make direct amends by shifting or changing our behavior, such as a friend of mine, for example, who had neglected his family for the first few years of his marriage because he was so caught up in his addiction. It was too late to save his marriage. It was over. But by the time he realized he needed to do his healing work, his marriage was over. But it was not too late to give his children as much assistance as possible at critical stages in their lives. What could be more direct than this? Are you hearing that? Okay, I messed up on the relationship, but that doesn't mean I mess up on the parenting of my kids for the rest of their lives. I want you to hear these few words here. There is always the thought of what might have been if only we had not neglected a responsibility or failed to take advantage of an opportunity. That's the big one I want you to hear there. Because, see, we think a lot of this stuff only plays out on a small level. It plays out on a global scale. And 1 week from today, we will be recognizing, hearing about, honoring the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. And there was a moment a few days after it occurred, and it started sinking in, and we started to be able to accept, wow, the world isn't flat anymore kind of consciousness. Wow, America has been attacked, and these buildings fell apart and were blown up, and lives were lost, and all the destruction that took place. And that opportunity to take advantage of an opportunity was placed in one person's hands. And that moment was when then President Bush was standing in the rubble at 9/11. You all remember maybe perhaps that moment? I don't know how it dented the psyche here, but as being American in America, in the heartland, it had a huge impact in the psyche of our people. And at that moment, he held the course of the world, the future of the world, in his hand, in the palm of his hand. He had at that moment as powerful of an opportunity to alter the history of humankind as any person in the last 100 years or possibly in the next 100 years to come. And he had an opportunity to step up to a higher place and say and turn and look at those buildings and say, you know what? We forgive the people that have done this to us. We are going to take the Christian road as he professed to be and turn the other cheek. We are going to elevate our consciousness above this and make this world a better place, a place of forgiveness, a place of kindness, of compassion, of empathy, so that we don't have to alter or destroy others' lives. And instead, he took the low road, which is the opposite of making amends, is to get revenge. A million 300,000 plus Iraqis, citizens have lost their life. How many American soldiers, Canadian soldiers, and not only the soldiers, but the children and the children's children that are being impacted by this? How many more times do we have to go through this process of revenging what others have done to figure out it doesn't work? Revenge in our own personal lives does not work. Imagine if we could have prayed at that moment. We could have changed the collective history. Instead, we're going through the biggest financial crisis this earth has ever faced. A shifting. Maybe for the best. I don't know. Don't know. I do know what happened in Oklahoma City and the bombing of April 18, 1994. I know that well. I was there and served and was a part of it. And just being back there a couple of weeks ago, the revitalization caused by what many people would have said it was a bad thing, and for the 500 people that were affected, their families that were lost, the 168 lives that were taken, it was death and destruction and a bad thing and all that. But they also, those 500 people, they have a group of, they call it the 500, that were 500 families that were affected by the loss of those lives. They also took, I'm going to forget his name, the bomber, Timothy McVeigh. They also took his father in a large room on the day of his execution and forgave him. And forgave him. And I know now that that is, if you've ever been to Oklahoma City and seen the memorial site, it's one of the most beautiful, powerful individual sites as there is anywhere in North America. And I've been to D.C., I've been to a lot of the places where there's great monuments. As an individual monument, it's as powerful as any. And the revitalization, the urbanization, the growth, the professionalism, the success, the revitalization of the downtown has been significant. So we don't know what this transition that our world is going through right now is going to cause, but I know that he had a chance to change the world and he missed it. You have a chance to change your own world. Are you going to miss it? Are you going to miss it? I learned that when I honestly do my part in making an amends, the results are then in Spirit's hands. I am not responsible for people that refuse to accept my apology, and I refuse to get involved if they just want to argue with me. A man was riding along on his motorcycle. It was a Harley. And he was riding along the California beach when suddenly the sky clouded above his head, and in a booming voice God said, "Because you have tried to be faithful to me in all your ways, I will grant you one wish." How many of you are still looking for that one wish? Just make me slim again. The biker pulled over and said, "Build a bridge to Hawaii so I can ride over anytime I want." God replied, "Your request is materialistic, my son. Think of the enormous challenges for that kind of undertaking, the supports required reaching to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, and the concrete and steel it would take. I can do it, but it's hard for me to justify your desire for worldly things. Take a little more time and think of something that could possibly help mankind." Biker thought for a moment. Finally he said, "God, I wish that I and all men could understand women. I want to know how she feels inside, what she's thinking, when she gives me the silent treatment, why she cries, what she means when she's saying nothing's wrong, why she snaps and complains when I try to help, and how can I make a woman truly happy?" With that, God replied, "You want 2 lanes or 4 on that bridge?" Some things. In order to make amends, one must redouble one's efforts to do the right things in order to show that the incidents requiring forgiveness are the exception, not the rule, about one's character and illness. And I'm going to end today with a writing, an email that was shared with me by Shannon Hollenworth, who's away currently and sits at our back table. And as you know, Shannon, if you've been here before, has learning difficulties and has been challenged with being accepted by others in her lifetime. And this is what she wrote to me, giving me full permission with the intention that she wanted me to share it. And I thought she was actually going to be here today, but it works. "Making amends in my life has not been an easy thing for me, but it has also changed my life. When my friend Roxanne first took me to Center for Inspired Living, I did not know if I would fit in because of my disability. But David said everyone is welcome. And I thought as soon as they get to know me here, they will ask me to leave, but they did not. How many of us are afraid that if somebody just gets to know us, they will ask us to leave their life? They talked about a weekend course that was going to be starting soon called Free the Heart. So I said I'd give it a try. I did the first and second day okay, but the third day I had so much stuff and I tried and tried but had a hard time with it. So I had to sit out and I felt like I had failed. But David and Dre said I did not fail. I did the exercise where you go and find someone and tell them you want to be forgiven. So I did my sister and my brothers and my foster mom and dad. Now since then, I've done Free the Heart 3 times and also the 5-day. I have been able to talk to my foster mom and dad more, and my sister is now letting me come over to her place more with the kids around. Back before I was maybe able to see them once a month because my anger had gotten the best of me. I used to hurt people and I'd end up in jail, but I'm happy to say that I've not been to jail for 7 years. And now at the end of August will be 2 months with no headbanging. I now have a job that I've been at for 1 year. I live on my own now with some nights having trouble, but getting through it now, and I have a cat. I have the Seven Oaks ACT team, and sometimes with them I have been rough, but I have made amends with them. Life is just getting better and better for me, and I'm going to keep moving on. So where's the area you need to make amends? What bridge do you need to cross? Let us pray.